Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are the co-hosts of Jumping Bomb Audio, the #1 show all about the world of Joshi Pro Wrestling. Episodes drop every other Monday where we discuss the biggest Joshi news, review shows, and preview the hottest upcoming Joshi action.
So whether you're a new fan or an old fan, we've got something here for you at Jumping Bomb Audio.
Check us out on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. Here where we want to sing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for December 17th, 2024. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click this red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or reoccurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous sponsors. I am one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside, as always, your other host, Case Lowe. And Case, this is a episode about feelings, I feel like. Because let me tell you, by the time I was through with the Konomama Ichikawa retirement show, I was on the edge of my couch, like trying to hold it together. Like and I feel like that's kind of the collection of stuff we have this week. Like we're looking to 2025. We're looking at a very strong end of the year for Dragongate. But boy, there's a little bit of hurt happening after Ichikawa retired for me.
It was certainly a weekend of feelings. I, of course, gravitate towards the Hyo and Jiro match as a match that certainly conjured up a lot of feelings that were different from the Stalker Ichikawa retirement show.
No, yeah. It really, the full gamut is on display this week. And we've had a lot of stuff that kind of happened in this last week. So we're just going to take this from the top, from the big news that kind of broke last week. Case, you weren't able to. I had the mini-sode where I was kind of filtering and going through my therapy words about the situation. But I feel like we should just kind of just get straight into it. Case, let's talk about the Shimizu situation.
Yeah, the Shimizu situation real quick, because this is definitely a week where I think the in-ring product of Dragongate is the thing worth talking about. I think that is the bigger story at play here. I think the booking decisions, some of which were very bold, I think those are the bigger stories here. But the Shimizu thing is a news item, and it's something that is worth briefly discussing. I know you said last week that there's no situation in which you would put your name next to a story right now, and I would certainly co-sign that. I heard a version of a story from someone that I trust, somebody that is certainly connected to the Dragongate family. And the only things I'll note is, and again, this is highly unconfirmed. I might even regret saying this, but it was nothing criminal, which I think is worth noting because people immediately went to criminality, which I understand our minds often jump to the worst things possible. The story that I heard was nothing criminal, and it was nothing that has to do with GLEAT. And take that for what you will. Feel free to take your guesses as to what that might mean. But the version of the story that I heard certainly seemed like a punishment fits the crime type scenario with his indefinite suspension, but it was not an actual crime itself, which again, I think is worth noting, given the recent history of Dragongate and perhaps some of the people that they have sent to Mexico that did not come back.
Yeah, and I, over the last week, it just becomes even more like abundantly clear to like me that the only reason that this actually became a public thing with the way that the company works, in case we both have covered this company in various ways off and on over the last decade, is because they had to change a card. Like that's it seems like it's so much in early days that the only reason that they had to say something was like, oh gosh, we have a promoted match or we have a champion that is about to have a promoted match. We have to address this here because we had to change cards. And if they didn't have to change cards, then this probably would Shimizu would disappear until whatever happened or whatever decided was going to be ready to be announced. So that's what makes this situation, I feel like, unique and worth noting when we compare it to the past one.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a public situation in a weird way gives me hope that Shimizu will return on the roster. You know, the difference between this and we talked about this when it happened 2 years ago, but the Kento and Fujiwara situation was a deal where you and I knew about that story a month before it broke. We sat around the day that we heard that story. We sat around all day because we thought that story was going to break in Japan and we were going to do an emergency podcast talking about what we knew at the time. And instead, a month went by and then another week went by and we were sitting on this and we did not want to be the ones to break that story. And then Conan, of all people, was the one that broke the story, not realizing he broke the story. And then that week, Dave had it in the Observer and everybody thought Dave was wrong. And, you know, we had to come out and say, no, Dave was right. We can confirm that they're gone from the company. But that was something happening behind closed doors. That was very hush-hush. That was a rumor that got leaked to me by somebody that, you know, I very rarely talk to, and they just happened to give me a heads up on that. And then everything they told me ended up being true. And that Kento Takuma story is largely known. There's still a few things. I think the nail in the coffin for those two is something that I've been able to only confirm about 99% of. And if I had that 1 more percent, I could tell a much juicier story, but I will once again hold off on that until I can get full confirmation there. But again, that was a story, you know, Dragongate didn't say anything until they announced that they were gone. And this is something where, you know, Kento was at Champion Gate that year in March. A lot of people expected him to be back in Japan wrestling by May, and then they were gone in June of 2023. The Shimizu situation is a little bit different. And, you know, you and I were talking off the air that I don't know if this is best case scenario or worst case scenario or just a scenario, but it certainly seems like the shaved head apology is coming his way, and that hopefully, you know, by the spring of next year, we have Shimizu back in the ring.
Yeah, it just seems like the kind of thing. And I think also if you're someone who is trying to like read tea leaves, I would encourage you not at this point. But the fact that like this was made an announcement in such a way that was like not like ever any indication of anything, I felt like that this is still very much a scenario that this is a company that a lot of things they'd rather just handle in the locker room and never come to light of day. And with Shimizu, unless some of the particulars turn out to be certain kind of things, I just don't expect anything more than like the shaved head and probably a demotion and that kind of thing. And maybe a more definite term suspension if it turns out to be what is going around, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we'll see. Again, the version of the story that I heard is highly unconfirmed, but I do have some level of trust in the person that told me that and the person that they got that information from. So we'll see what happens. It's one of those things, you know, I think over the last few months between the El Desperado tweets that people, you know, sort of stormed out of hand with, and then the Ibushi, is it a staph infection? Is it a Band-Aid? Is it this? Is it that? Like, I feel like this community has had some bad looks over the last few months. And in a way, I don't know if proud is the right word. That makes me sound like I have this massive ego and that I speak for more than I do. But it was nice to see the Shimizu stuff. I felt like the conversation, at least in the bubble that I'm in, was very contained and people weren't jumping to conclusions outside of this GLEAT thing, which I think it's a fair conclusion to jump to. And I found the statement from their President Suzuki, to be really, really weird. And then the follow-up from SP Kento and Takuma Fujiwara, who once again rear their ugly heads, I found their comments to be utterly baffling. So let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so a man who has never found a moment not worth doing a PR hit. Late President Hiroki Suzuki on the 12th announced that they will not poach and that they have never poached. And I promised, and I'm using his quote here, whenever things like the Shimizu story pops up, every time it comes up, with it, GLEAT and poaching always ends up being like something that's thrown around. But Hiroyuki Suzuki claims that he has not poached any of them. However, he continued, I want to avoid a situation where Dragon Gate fans become anxious every time something like this happens. So let me say here, and this is where I feel like he found an opportunity to make a PR hit, and he wanted to. I promise that any wrestlers who leave Dragon Gate after July of 2023 or whose contracts are terminated will never compete in a GLEAT ring after today, December 12th, even if they go freelance or go through another organization. However, I would like to work with wrestlers who have belonged to and competed in GLEAT from the launch of the company until today, as long as our mutual relationships and contracts continue. So, yeah, I think him saying July 2023 is, of course, going back to, SB and Takuma in a way, but more so, I think that he was in the right place to kind of talk about, like, we have not poached people, which if you look at how the Dragon Gate departures and GLEAT appearances appear and have gone, I mean, Strongheart's fully out of the company, and for years at that point. Kaito Ishida, there was a period, and that was after a long conclusion happened that was irrespective of GLEAT, I feel like is fair to say about that. And then you're looking at SB and Takuma, and that situation I feel like is pretty public at this point. So
and Kazuma Sakamoto, who was always a freelancer and was annoyed when people would call him a Dragon Gate wrestler, and then he jumped to GLEAT and did sign a contract there.
Right. So, like, he is right about this, but it does kind of feel like to me, and this is a guy that if there's any mention of GLEAT on social media, he crops his head up about this kind of thing. Of course, he probably sees enough people on 2chan or whatever say, or over line messages going, oh, Shimizu GLEAT when, and then he's like, oh, I should probably clarify this because I'm willing to bet that Hiroyuki Suzuki has no fucking clue what happened with Big Boss Shimizu. And then he's like, oh, and I can still talk about this here.
It's a very weird statement in that he promises to not do anything in the future. I find that to be incredibly bizarre. I don't know what he gains by saying that. Maybe he's trying to shake the cobwebs of, oh, this is just, diet Dragon Gate. Maybe, I don't know if that's the perspective he was going for there, but I found the future tense of that statement to be incredibly odd.
Right, yeah, unless your future tense is like looking at like, okay, I'm going full in on the UWF thing. Shima and his kids can go fuck off, basically.
And
like,
I don't get the impression that's happening, even though they are feeding Yamamura to Psycho Clown in a few weeks. But that, that's just bad booking. There's nothing other than just bad booking at play there.
Yeah, and speaking about Takahiro Yamamura being fed to Psycho Clown case, that's happening on December 30th, GLEAT version 14 from Tokyo Dome City Hall. But the problem is, Case, the usual way that you would watch GLEAT will not be the case. So if you're someone who's followed this side of the Dragon system, you know that they have their YouTube channel and everything goes onto it, right?
Yes.
However, this was announced yesterday that the GLEAT official YouTube channel will have official membership, a la what CMLO and other subscription plans do, starting on December 23rd. The registration is 990 yen a month, and it begins with the GLEAT version 14 show. But that's okay, Case, because you get the stream, no live commentary whatsoever on it. So GLEAT is going behind a paywall to start off, to finish the year, and to go in 2025. And I talked with Rich about this yesterday. And do you think this is the accountant? Rich Craich brought up, oh yeah, I think the accountant someone finally saw all the red numbers and was going like, we can't do this anymore. Well, is that kind of your impression with this, or is this just Hiroyuki Suzuki doing another wild thing?
No, I mean, their business model didn't make any sense for 4 years. They had to make a change, and this is not the week because we have so much other stuff to get to. There's a whole history of what happens when Japanese wrestling that is free goes behind a paywall. And you and I have lived through this. We've seen this with Dragon Gate. We've seen this. There's no greater victim of this than DDT, and DDT has a good service, but
Arguably the best service.
Arguably the best. And if you weren't around 8 to 10 years ago, now granted you're dealing with Prime Harashima and Ibushi still popping his head in, and a young Takeshita and Endo and Sakaguchi and Higuchi, and the roster I feel was stronger 8 years ago than it was now, but it's hard to explain like the level of DDT discourse that was there, or the level of Big Japan discourse when the strong guys were really taking over, or of course the level of Dragongate discourse. Like, all of these things were much greater. And then you go into your scummy indies and, people earnestly watching Heat Up and enjoying it and things like that, because they were all available and they were all free and they were all really easy to watch. And the one thing that GLEAT had going for it, at least in our bubble, and I will be voting them worst promotion of the year. So the one thing they had going for them is that their shows were free and their shows were very easy to watch. And, even as a to steal a phrase from another wrestling company, but like a certified sicko, I'm not paying money for any of this. This promotion is horrid, and any buzz that they had, at least in our bubble this year, was simply through the means of their shows being free. And once they go behind the paywall, I mean, Mike, we know, maybe one or two people that are going to pay for this, and if we're lucky, one or two of those people are going to put it up on a site where then we can watch it. But what a nightmare this is going to be. I mean, I want no part of paying for a company that I think has been actively bad in 2024.
Yeah, and to compound like the whole accounting scenario here, the one thing that we've discovered that makes a lot of sense for this company and that they did and worked for them was their exorbitant front row tickets. That they would get super fans, however you want to look at that, and they would pay a insane amount of money for front row tickets, basically idol concert level prices for that. So now you have a paywall that essentially 20 times less what you would pay for that ticket. That is your backbone you're cutting into, because of, you probably look at the YouTube stream numbers, and the stream numbers are pretty good. Like GLEAT does do pretty good viewership on YouTube, and you think that that's going to be the way to the future, is to monetize that much more than the people who've actually kind of kept this company afloat basically by their sponsorship or like their relationships with the more senior wrestlers on this roster. Like, how do you go to someone who has been a Minoru Tanaka or Shima, like longtime fan club supporter, and you're talking about someone like now upwards of 25, 30 years, and you're going like, all right, so we've really appreciated what you've done, but how you like will travel to Osaka for the show and you buy the front row ticket, and that's how you've been helping out the promotion. Well, now you can help with promotion too, but it's only going to be 990 yen. That's going to cut into things, and that's going to cut into like one of their few fan bases that they have that actually meaningfully contribute to their revenue. I feel like that's like another awful reason to do that if you are a company like GLEAT.
Yeah, I say this every time we talk about them. No one more so than me, with the exception of the people that have a financial interest in this company, want it to be good. I really wish that I enjoyed this promotion. And there are times in 2022 in particular, and then a little bit in 2023 where I didn't. I would look forward to these shows. But when you're presenting that Tokyo Dome City Hall show on the 30th as a show that I have to pay for, I mean, I think that card looks horrendous. And then there's the stuff with Suzuki that, rubs me the wrong way a little bit. And then, just to kind of come full circle here, I don't know if you saw, but when Suzuki released that statement, Shima stayed quiet, Yamamura stayed quiet, T-Hawk, I believe, stayed quiet because he has no ground to stand on. I didn't see anything from Lindemann, but Kento and Takuma both quote tweeted the news story that came out about the GLEAT statement, and Takuma's was in particular very interesting. The machine translation of it, the first line he says, "Why do we have to be treated like we have a criminal record?" And I do feel like that this past week of GLEAT, on top of now having to pay for a service that you previously didn't have to pay for, there's a lot of like hands up. Oh, what do you mean me? Like, I'm not the bad guy here. What are you talking about? And it's an ugly promotion, man. The match quality this year has been very low. The booking has been atrocious. I don't know if you've seen like these house show cards they've been running. I mean, these shows look horrid, and there is no upward momentum. It looked like they had a guy in Tamura. Tamura has been such a disappointment as champion. It looked like they were going to run with Yamamura, and then that just completely stopped. And now he's wrestling Psycho Clown at Tokyo Dome City Hall, which I don't know, man. I watched Yamamura come back last year, and it made me incredibly, incredibly uncomfortable. And then by February, he was the best wrestler on that roster, and I kind of got over it. And if I was going to build to 1 year since Yamamura's return with the year that he's had, which has been exceptional, he's a guy that I thought about for SFM 50, would have made an FSM 75, let's say. I would not have booked him against Psycho Cloud. Just not something I would have done. I probably would have had him in the title match. I probably would have had him winning the title, but this promotion is a wreck, and this entire week just left a bad taste in my mouth, as if it wasn't already super positive to start with.
Well, let's try to rinse our mouth out, Case. We have two great Dragon Gate shows to talk about happening on Sunday and on today, and let's just go immediately to the last of the traditional Big Five shows, the Final Gate from Fukuoka on the 15th. Your written review is already up on voicesofwrestling.com, but we entered this knowing that we would have a brand new Grand Slam double champion. It was either going to be Dragon Dia, the Brave Gate champion and King of Gate winner, or it was going to be the Open the Dream Gate champion, Yamato. It would be Yamato who entered first, as he lost a drawing between him and Dia on who would get the first entrance in blue corner, second entrance red corner. Dia got the second entrance, but Yamato was the one who was able to finally put him away after a Galleria got a one kick out. Yamato just immediately went, whoops, Ragnarok, we're done here. And that was what happened. Now Yamato becomes the 8th member of the Dragon Gate Grand Slam Club, and especially an even more rarefied air when you include King of Gate winners. And he is now a triple champion, at least until today. But before we get into the Brave Gate situation, and we do kind of need to talk about that from happening on today's show, let's talk about this main event, because I think that we have now fully seen the ascendance of Dragon Dia, that 3 3/4 star general tag that we gave him over most this year is very far beneath him after it. Just a masterclass of a classic Dreamgate match that we had in Fukuoka, and getting the historically cold Fukuoka crowd they were just losing it towards the end of this match.
They deserve so much credit for what they have done with Dia this year. I've talked about this at length. I'll quickly repeat myself here, where you come into the year with no Yoshioka. Kakuta's got to be cycled down because he lost the Dreamgate belt, and your star of D-Courage becomes Ryoya Tanaka, not because he's presented like a star, but just because consistently he is the guy that stands out most in their matches. And Dia was somebody who was going nowhere fast, who had seemingly peaked in 2022, and I don't think any of us had looked at him as like a failure by any means, but
not by any measure.
No, but we saw him be Brave Gate champion and Twin Gate champion at the same time, and we have that clip on YouTube talking about how D-Courage defined Dragon Gate in 2022, and they were the main characters, and this was the new generation, and you saw that carry over from Yoshioka into Kakuta in 2023, but they didn't really have anything going for them this year, and it seemed like to some degree, even with the Big Hug failures, that Big Hug had stolen some of their thunder. Natural Vibes had certainly stolen some of their thunder, and Gold Class, in the reincarnated version of it, had definitely stolen some of their thunder. And so Dai is this guy who just has nothing going for him. He's a late injury replacement in Best of the Super Juniors, which I think has to be noted. His Super Juniors appearance, it's not like when they ran the VTR that he was featured there front and center. He was an injury replacement for Taguchi. He came in, he got jobbed out, he did nothing, but Dragon Gate took notice of the fact that, he went somewhere and represented Dragon Gate well and came back and was more over for it. And so by the time we get to Kobe World and it's him and Hyo for the Brave Gate belt, we're going, man, they peaked these two guys at just the right time. Hyo is more over than ever. Dia feels really hot. Good for them. This feels like the peak of Dia's story. And then we'll see what happens with this Brave Gate run. And, he wins the title there, and then he has a number of 3 3/4 star matches defending that belt. And you get into King of Gate, and I just assumed, Fukuoka is a market that is harder and harder to draw in between the building that they have for Final Gate and the building that they don't have in that market, Hakata Star Lanes. It's just very, very tough to get people interested in wrestling in that market right now. I assumed that they would do the really safe option coming out of King of Gate. They would do Mochizuki. It's been forever since we've seen Mochizuki versus Yamato. That's fitting of a Final Gate main event. We'll do that. We'll go into the new year. Everything will be great. And instead, they just have Dia run through King of Gate. He has that very good match with Yamato on the opening night. He has a very good match with Mochi on the final night. And then he has that great match with Minoura in the finals of that tournament. And like you said, and I think this is worth noting, he had a classic Dreamgate match in the main event of Final Gate, something that I did not think Daya had in him. And I asked you 2 weeks ago, I said, what is the best Daya match of all time? And we sort of kicked around a few, but for me, the litmus test was, and he keeps on coming up in this podcast, the Takuma Fujiwara match from 2022. I love that match. And Mike, I have no problem saying I thought this Yamato match was much better than that Fujiwara match.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of have this like special kind of position where the Daya and Fujiwara match at Champion Gate very much was the let's look at this freak Fujiwara.
Yes, it's way more of a Fujiwara match than it is a Daya match.
Right, and for that time period, that was exactly like Dead On. I remember us just going like, GM Ryo Saito, you're doing a great job. That's exactly what we want to see at this point. But for 2024, what do I want to see? I want to see just the ace of the company, Yamato, in what is probably, at least for me, if we're going to compare his 6 Dreamgate runs, this one is close to my favorite right now. I mean, we're comparing this with like Phenom Yamato at this point, and he takes someone like Daya, whose Daya's performance in this match was incredible, like nothing to besmirch here with him. But Yamato, as someone who I'm certain that either Jay or someone has the stat on how many Dreamgate matches, I think Yamato is probably up there for the most Dreamgate matches of all time. And he's kind of putting on a vintage now that I think is absolutely just tremendous. Just like, I think that was one of my favorite Dragon Screws I've seen in my life in this match, because how just gnarly it was, and the idea that, okay, you're going to sell that for the most of the match, but eventually if you're someone like Dragon Daya, you're going to shake that out, get the adrenaline going. You're going to, unless it's a total like destruction, you're going to eventually get that back. And maybe does that hurt him towards the closing stretch with him like attempting something like a Dragon Rana? Possibly. But I love those little moments there. There was like a sudden Galleria out of nowhere. And I just kind of look down at this. I'm trying to think, is this like, I know we're talking about this being Daya's best match, singles match of his career, and I think this is easily surpassing that Champion Gate match. But when has Yamato had a Dreamgate match this good?
Well, this is where I have to take a small victory lap, and I'm not ready to grab the checkered flag entirely just yet, but I do think it's worth noting, when Yamato won this title in July, I said I think this is going to be the reign that defines his career. And you go back and you look at his prior Dreamgate matches, there was no chance that his reign in 2021 was going to be that. He has the great match against Skywalker when he wins the belt. He goes Minoru, Hulk, Benkei, and then loses it to Kai. And a lot of those matches were very good. Few of them were great. You have the very, very long 420-day reign in 2016 and 2017 that you and I both loathe. He's got a super short reign in 2014 where, the matches are incredible. The two that we saw, the Ricochet match and the Yamato match, but it's, short transitional champion reign. Same thing in 2013. He wins the belt against Shingo, defends against Saito, loses to Yoshino. All of those matches are incredible, but it was a transitional reign to get to Yoshino. And you go back to his first reign, it's like, all right, he wins against Doi. He has that really long match with Susumu. He has a really long and pretty disappointing match with Shingo. And then he's got a great Mochizuki match and then loses it to Yoshino. And again, like, it's a good reign, but it's not a great reign. It's not one that you and I would put in our Mount Rushmores, or probably even by this point, historically, our top 10. And this Yamato reign in 2024 feels different. We had the great Kakuta match that I still think I'm higher on than everybody else, but I really, really love that match. The Ishin match is the one that I feel lower on, and I still love that. The Kano match was solid, and now you have this on top of the Benkei match where he won the belt. I mean, this is a really impressive string of matches from Yamato, and it's happening at the right time where they feel like they have their mojo back in Korakuen, and by and large, the shows in Kobe and Osaka, and to a lesser degree Fukuoka, they have a good vibe to them. And even outside of one major blemish on this show, like, it was just a good vibes, big show. I like the way the roster is shaped up, and I like the young guys they have, and I like the veterans they have, and I like the output from all these guys. And you have to give Yamato a lot of credit for that. I mean, you saw him cry in the middle of the ring at the end of Kobe World and talk about how this was his company and he wasn't going anywhere. And Mike, I mean, this feels like Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions, where this entire roster has taken on his persona. and it doesn't feel accidental. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that with this win, and do we want to get into the Bravegate news that comes out of this? Because I feel like it kind of plays into this point I'm going to make.
Let's talk about it. I've still got more to say on the match, but let's talk about the
Yeah.
Bravegate thing real quick.
So Yamato becomes the Open the Bravegate champion. He is within the weight range. Dre pointed out on commentary that he's someone that walks around at 80 kilos and says, like, I haven't been over Bravegate range for like a decade. I don't think I could do that. But he said after his match today, he immediately grabbed the microphone. This was after the Veterans versus Paradox match, which was a great deal of fun. But he says that there's just too many, he has too many matches he has to make. And let's be honest, like he feels like that no one immediately came out and is making a Bravegate challenge at this point. So until Yamato is defeated for the Open the Dreamgate title, the Bravegate title is on hiatus. It's essentially, since he is the Dreamgate champion, he is still the Bravegate champion, but the belts will not be decided at least during this title run here. And I think that what we see now is, and one of the things that makes Yamato this, like, at least 2024 Yamato, this like such a compelling figure after becoming champion at Kobe World, is he has made a constant point of saying, like, I'm the one you need to get through. I am the wall you have to crawl over to be able to do this. You have to take me out here. And I feel like that this is like another kind of instance of that. It's like I'm now putting even a bigger bullseye on myself if you're looking at this from Yamato's standpoint. And I think that makes him like, in a weird way, like this is almost like, hey, Tokyo Sports, look what I'm doing right now, and you didn't pay attention to me this year. So let's talk about next year, because I am a triple belt champion, and I'm now becoming like the singular focus in this promotion, at least for the near term, in such a way that Paradox feels now like the mountain that the rest of the company has to climb.
Okay, so we have two totally different perspectives on this, because I co-sign all of that, and the way you synthesized it actually warms me up to the idea of the Bravegate belt going away as long as he is the champion. I kind of wish he would have cut that promo. At least the translations we got weren't quite that affirmative and direct, and I like the way you phrased all that. I'm happy to be wrong on this, but to me, this is the most let it play out promo that I've ever heard. Let's just see what happens in January. Let's see what happens in February. We have to get to Champion Gate in March. Like, let's just see where this goes. I have no strong initial reaction to this, because I kind of think this is just going somewhere. And if it doesn't, I'm happy to be wrong. But to me, this is such a left field play. This is such a unique take on this situation that I kind of don't think that this is going to be the end result.
Right, because if we want to talk about people who are like the Bravegate level, the person that should have to be like, hey, don't do that, is the guy who just dropped the belt. Like if we compare it to the past, where you would have people like Kness and Yoshino kind of run the division, be like, all right, we're doing this belt now, it's going to be this. And we did an episode about how the Bravegate division was essentially formed out of this rivalry, then became this huge thing to promote Naruki Doi and finally start his ascent up the cards. It worked down that way, but it always kind of went back to Yoshino and Kness for a while. Then you have like Dragongate and people like that embody the belt for such a long period of time. Who the one person that you could say that for this era is Mr. Bravegate was the person who put the belt at stake. So I kind of see Yamato's logic, and it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I don't hate the way that you laid it out. Now I'm going to shift into fantasy booking for a second, which I know is a dangerous proposition, but we keep on hearing that UT's life goal is to win this Bravegate belt again. Because has he ever won it? Did he win it from Susumu?
No, never. He's never won the belt.
Won it. Okay.
Because he has great matches, and they were like, oh, great, there's going to be a rematch, wins on the rematch, and then he got hurt. And every single time. Yeah.
It just feels like UT should beat Yamato for the Bravegate belt, and that should be like a thing that happens in, I guess, Champion Gate would kind of be the ideal scenario for that. Again, now we're drifting into wants and desires instead of something realistic, but I don't know. To me, it's funny. Everybody had a very strong reaction coming out of Korakuen about that, and it was mostly negative. I like the way you framed that. I'm certainly on board with that idea, but I'm very much in the camp of, we got 2 Korakuen shows in January.
Oh yeah.
We've got a big show at the end of the month. Champion Gate's right around the corner. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, who's to say that this is something that doesn't get like Cyrio doesn't go like, well, actually, I think we need to have this happen. You know?
Yes, exactly.
You had some other thoughts you had on the double title match.
Yeah, I want to just go through some of the stuff that I liked in this match. One thing that Dragongate has done, and it's why I just want to believe that wrestling isn't that hard and that every other promotion is making it way more complicated than it needs to be. One of the things that I really like about Dragongate right now, and we always say that this promotion is largely defined by how good the heel unit is at any moment in time, but the baby faces on this roster right now, and this was a heroic babyface performance from Daya. You'll lump in Tanaka there in the same unit. Kakuta is there. He's not doing anything extraordinary right now. And then you go and you look at Natural Vibes, and it's so easy to root for KZ and Flamita and Jay and Yuti and Shimizu if he ever comes back. And then you look at Gold Class, and I like all of those guys. And then you look at Paradox, and you've got Susumu now doing this Dragon Kid tribute act, and you saw it again with Dragon Daya here, where he starts doing all these Dragon Kid moves. And it's like, man, it's amazing how they take this Dragon Kid situation and turn it into a positive, where now Daya is basing this entire match around his big moves as well as his own big moves. And I thought that was incredibly touching, and just another thing that, if you're a lapsed fan who maybe want to check out Final Gate because of the Ichikawa show, I don't know how you can't just wrap your arms around Dai and embrace him after the Vampire Scissors and then all the moves that he did that were Dragon Kids moves. And you have just this great amount of fire towards the finishing stretch. Yamato hits the superplex, but Daya pops right up. Yamato goes for a Galleria. Dragon Daya turns into a Bible. Dragon Daya goes for a Reptilian Rana. And Yamato turns into a vicious, vicious powerbomb. At that point, Yamato almost seems like he's out of ideas, and he's just hitting lariats on this guy one after another. And then, like you said, Galleria kick out at 1. Okay, let me hit the Ragnarok. This match is over. And I am just blown away by the fact that Daya was able to get up to this level. I'm blown away by the consistency of Yamato during this title reign. I went 4.5 stars on this. My review's over at voicesofwrestling.com. This is not going to be a top 10 worldwide match for me this year, but this is comfortably a top 10 Dragon Gate match for me this year.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard for me to think of 10 matches in this company that I liked more than this. And especially if we want to kind of make it more of an abstract thing, the idea of the Dragon Gate, Dreamgate match, it's I feel like one of the more maligned tropes in wrestling criticism is the idea that Dragon Gate, Dreamgate matches with always have the slow first 10 minutes that don't go into the last 15, and then in the last 5 minutes that's just all in sixth gear. I feel like that if you're looking at that kind of formula of a match, and you're someone that looks at this company and this kind of title with an expectation, especially as someone, if you're someone who feels more like this is not the Dragon Gate I liked, but in 2012 or in 2006, I feel like very comfortably putting this match up to the vast majority of those Golden Age Dreamgate matches. I feel like it would fit in just as well as any other matches that Yamato could have had in 2016. It's better than most of the matches he had in that 2016 reign, as you were talking about. So I feel like that this is a step below historic, but I was at 4.5 stars, and very easily one of my favorite Yamato matches in years. I feel like probably his challenge of Yoshioka.
So I'm looking now. So the last Yamato Dreamgate match that I would have on this level would be the Yoshioka match in 22. I would have the Shun match from 2021. That was better than the Daya match. And then you start to go into 2017. People love the match where Mochizuki beat him for the title. I think I gave that 4 3/4, but I couldn't tell you a fucking thing that happened to that match. I don't remember that at all.
It was a Mochizuki match. It wasn't a Yamato match.
Yeah.
It was a Mochizuki match. That's why I got it. Yeah.
And then, T-Hawk, that match sucked. Cage match, that was a subpar cage match. The Cyberkong match sucked. This Daya match was better than the BB Hulk Korakuen match. This was better than the Doi Final Gate match, better than the Tozawa Dreamgate Challenge. Not as good as the Shingo match at Kobe World 2016. Better than Hulk at 2014. We haven't seen the Susumu match or the Genki match. This was better than the Ricochet match. And then I would say not as good as the Yoshino match or the Saito match from 2013. But again, I mean, now we're going back to the very beginning of his Dreamgate career. And
we're going back to pre-omniscient, almighty Yamato. We're going back to Battleship era Yamato.
yeah, I mean, the Shingo match would be from 2013 would be the first of the almighty Yamato. And that was, I love that Shingo match, but I think the Daya match was better. And then you have to go back to 2012 and the Shima challenge and then 2010. And yeah, I mean, I would have Mochi in 2011 at Dead or Alive,
Fair.
Saito 2013, Yoshino 2013, Shingo 2016, and then Shun 21 and Yoshioka 22 as the only matches definitively better than that Daya match from Yamato's Dreamgate career. And then there's a lot that, whether it's the Mochizuki match from 2010 or the Shima match from 2012 or, the Shingo match from 2013, those are on the level of that Daya match.
Yeah, and I think that, like, as we kind of, like, take a step back, and if you remove 2016, 2017 out of it, this, I feel like, he has probably put on one of the most consistent Dreamgate match careers out of anyone not named Takagi or Mochizuki.
Yes. What do we do with Yamato for Flair Fest this year?
I mean, geez. It's I mean, Final Gate was an announced 500 ticket jump from last year,
and it looked like it too. I watched that show live, and I always kind of wince when they do that wide shot, because I didn't get a DM or anything with any indication of ticket sales ahead of time, so I didn't know what they were going to do. And then they showed the wide shot. I go, oh man, it looks good in there. It definitely
looked really full. And I mean, even during like the fucking Jiro entrance, it was notable.
More on that later. So I want to talk about this for just a second, because to me, even like way more so than last year, this is Mystico's year, because like Cody's title run hasn't been this overwhelming success. I think people think it is because of Legental activity, but it's not. We can look at the Saturday night's main event number.
And their ticket sales to close out the year, they're not closing out how they would close out really strong. Like they have less than like 10,000 MSG tickets sold.
I know, and I'm kind of baffled by why more people aren't bringing that up. So, and I'm not saying Cody's run is a failure, but it's just it's not this overwhelming success that I think people think it is. They have figured out a formula for big show ticket sales. They have. I don't think have figured out a formula for the rest of their live events. That's just me, separate conversation. AEW is really, I don't know if I could vote for anybody there in good conscience for Flair Thez. I mean, Danielson was such a good wrestler, but there's some ugly houses on his resume there. And then you go to, New Japan. Fuck, is Naito the guy that people will vote for there?
Yeah, and I think that you would look at how throughout the year, I mean, really, you would Tokyo Sports it if you're looking for the real kind of person. You would be like, okay, Zach popping that number twice in Sumo Hall would probably be the thing there. But I mean, but then
Zach also has some
real
rough numbers. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, no. I mean, you're not wrong about that. It's just like it'd either be one or the other. I think Naito probably business-wise has the better case. But
Naito's a dreadful wrestler, and I couldn't vote somebody that bad for Flair Thez.
I mean, it was watching World Tag League matches with him and Hiromu. I feel like Hiromu using him as a jungle gym was probably the best use of him at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, look, if you want to vote for Miyahara or Aoyagi, be my guest. I have no argument against that. All Japan has had a really impressive business year. Nobody in Noah, nobody in DDT. And then again, to me, and I don't even say this in jest, but to me, the strongest argument for Mystico is not the multiple 10,000 house shows that he's been on top of. It is the fact that he draws an MLW. And I literally do not think that can be ignored.
Yeah, no, he gets 2,000 people to MLW, right?
Packed, and comes across as the biggest star there. It's a Mystico crowd.
So, just by process elimination, I know that for you, it's harder. But I would say, you don't really watch Stardom or Marigold.
That's right. I left out the Joshi. I apologize.
I would say though that business, Marigold, like the Suri stuff is just Suri winning the Joshi Prize was also the fact that Suri has is like in 4 different promotions and runs her own produce stuff. Like that's part of her winning the Tokyo Sports thing. But Marigold business isn't good. Stardom up and down, but I wouldn't contribute it to anyone really on that side. So I mean, process by elimination, I think Yamato has to be considered at least for a 3rd place vote.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anybody in CMLL that I'm forgetting for like a 2nd place vote, because
You can't even say like Hechicero, even though he had the Anniversario win, because that was a different kind of Anniversario match, you know?
yeah, I'm more inclined, I think, to vote for Hechicero versus Zach as a feud of the year contender, but
Fair. Yeah, no, I think that's totally valid.
you go down the roster, it's like, Volador's not really a Flair Thez guy. I don't really feel like Dorada's a Flair Thez guy. Templario's not there. Atlantis Jr.'s, a level below that. So I don't know. I'll think about it, but if I had to turn on a ballot today, I would probably say Mystico 1, Yamato 2, and Miyahara 3. Maybe Danielson 3, but the All Japan thing is impressive. I mean, they have really carved out a nice little niche for what they do. And that might sound demeaning, but I really do not mean it that way.
Now, would you say that Miyahara has the better case, or would you say that the Saito twins have a better case? Because I feel like I could see an argument for a Saito twins, a 3rd place Flair Thez vote.
I would love for somebody more tuned into All Japan than me to answer that question. That is, if anybody has strong thoughts on that, please put in the Discord, because I would genuinely like to hear that thought process. I'm way behind on All Japan.
It's my gaping hole that I don't follow is All Japan.
Have you seen this Mike DeVicchio guy?
Yeah, everyone tells me I need to watch this Mike D guy.
Dude, you gotta watch him. Rich and Joe put him over last week and talked about how if Shima still had his fastball, he'd be a GLEAT guy. And I kind of folded my arms and went like, well, let me be the judge of that. And then I watched him.
You just think a Jack guy doing flips is going to automatically be a Shima guy.
And he's like a more talented Peter Casa. He kind of fucking rocks, actually.
Oh, Jesus. That's that on that is a Shima guy.
Yeah, no, Rich and Joe were 100% correct, and that dude rocks, and that's a great pickup for All Japan.
Yeah, hey, no, go for that. Any other thoughts on the main event?
No, it was awesome. I would highly recommend people check it out if they haven't seen it.
And our semi-main event of Final Gate was Fire Time, KZ and Flamita making their first defense of the Twin Gate titles against a former Twin Gate champion team and mainstay that finally reunited, Jason Lee and Kota Minoura. They would start their next Twin Gate run as they defeated Fire Time. It was a Golden Rose by Minoura after one of the, I would say one of the worst Dragon Gate weapon kind of finishes in a long time. I would say that's fair. But still, with that, I thought this was a really strong match. It's just that it completely, like, standing around for cookie sheets for Flamita kind of knocked all momentum in the closing stretch.
I seem to be less bothered by this than other people. It wasn't good, but it didn't really take me out of the finish, and I get the feeling I'm a little bit higher on this match than most people are.
Yeah, no, I'm lower than you. It was so good that it had to be 4 stars, but I just like, and I feel like I said this before, like with like some of like the early pains of RED case, where it just was like they were doing weapon attacks and it just would be like very slow. It wasn't boom boom. I remember Kaito Ishida was someone that was like very late on doing powder attacks, and it was just had someone standing around. And I think that the way that Dragon Gate and the heels get away, or the reason why like it's so easy to hand wave. Well, there's really no DQs in Dragon Gate and stuff like this because there is kind of a continuity, and they do in general, like the referee does have like tunnel vision of someone talking to them, but they don't ever see the act. This was so slow that it kind of did this, and that was after you did a Flamita mask grip kind of thing here. It just kind of just slowed it down for me for a finish when like I assumed that Mino Lee was going to win the belts here. It just felt like that if you were going to have them be these champions and be like heel cheating champions, they would have done it a lot cleaner than that.
See, it's funny. This was the match I thought we were going to get, and I think part of that, and this is pure speculation, but Flamita's been so good, and it seemed like Flamita had so much momentum that I actually don't know if it would have done Minoru and Lee any favors had they just beat him clean in the middle. They almost needed this nefarious reason to beat this guy because he's been so good since he came back. And so I every once in a while I can fully buy into a car crash match like this. And there was so much interference and so many weapons, and it was so convoluted that it sucked me in.
No, that it's entirely fair. It's entirely fair. And if it was just, at least for me, only personally, just a snip quicker towards the finishing stretch, going boom, 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 weapon shop, golden rose. There we go. We're out of here. That would have done it for me. Flamita, given how a little shaky things were for him for a little while, that was the cleanest fly I saw in a long time.
That was nice to say. It was very nice to say.
And this one had like the hot start that one would expect with this. And I think really like seeing how now revisiting Jason and Minoru in this kind of tag team with like now both of them are a lot more bigger and that they have different kind of combinations now, and just even things it's like, oh, you're doing like a Bombero into a Jason forearm. That looks gnarly. That could be a finish to me. And I enjoy that aspect of this Minoli team that I think provides a little bit of edge and difference from where these two guys were last time. Like you could see the difference in the progression of Kota Minoru and Jason Lee over the last 4 years.
Not to continue my toxic relationship with the guy, but I really thought Lee completely outclassed Minoru in this match. And it's kind of one of those deals where, you know, you look at that Z-Brass lineup right now, and Shun is your number one, and then you've got Ishin doing what he's doing, and then you've got Jason, who's going to be slotted right next to Minoru, and now Kato's back, and Kato's doing what he's doing, and Homare is super exciting because he's new, and it's just it's the Eita thing. You know, I compared him to Eita last week. It's the Eita thing. This guy, who was supposed to be the guy, just continues to get outclassed by his peers, and it's not that it's like, oh well, you know, Minoru's not shining because of KZ and Ben and Yamato. It's like, no, it's the guys right next to him that I just think are completely one-upping him. And I thought Jason was so dynamic and so charismatic in this match. And I really liked seeing him as a heel in this sort of title match because we haven't really seen Jason in a ton of these sorts of matches in the role that he was in this one. But Minoru is like, God, this was a paint-by-numbers heel performance that I thought was completely uninspiring.
Yeah, there's a bit of him as a heel that I like him putting on the weight, and I think that helps him. But his general like demeanor, and maybe this is that we're talking about a guy who we're still within the first 5 months of his heel turn, and and not to turn it back towards you, but within the first 5 months of Ishin's heel turn, it was a lot of ups and downs and figuring himself out too.
Completely. But Minoru has had more time just as a performer than Ishin had when he turned heel. And, you know, we saw, I mean, look, I was very into it when he was wrestling Rita, and I thought they had great chemistry. And I quite honestly wasn't really ready for those two to be separated. And it seems like they're being separated again. But I don't know. That is just, I'm having Eita RED vibes where you would look at that lineup and you would go, well, okay, Pac is better than him, but that's Pac. But also Shimizu's kind of outclassing him. And, well, Ben's kind of doing better than he is. And you look around and it's just like, oh
Kazuma
my God.
Sakamoto is
Kazuma
good.
Sakamoto's sneaky good. Wait a minute. Kaito Ishida's heel? Kaito Ishida's awesome. And it was just, we're doing the same thing with this guy. And I wanted to be good. Having just gone back and watched some of the really early Masquerade matches, which was the first time that I had rewatched anything from late 2020 or early 2021 since it happened, I go like, oh yeah, no, that Minoru was great, but you know what? He was in the ring with Shun, and he was in the ring with Jason, and he was in the ring with Daya, and I don't know. I think they're going to continue to try to make this guy a 1B, and I think he is so obviously at best a number 2, and I don't know if they will ever learn that lesson. I don't think, had T-Hawk not left, I don't think they would have ever learned that lesson with him.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be an interesting kind of maybe speculative voice gate plus kind of thing about guys who have been misslotted in a way, because I think that like the person that you would put him up against, like Eita, very much like I think you're raising the valid points there with him. I get this just overall like Hulk kind of thing where Hulk never felt like the number one until like the 1 year that he felt like the number one and he
Yeah.
got the belt for that time period. And I feel like that the chasing that we saw with T-Hawk, because I think you're absolutely right about that, and a little bit with Eta, but what they fully are into is that it's just like, hey, maybe 1 year it's all going to fall into place with him. And then you have like the time that's like, oh yeah, no, this should be his run, and everything will be perfect with Minoru. But the thing is that it'll be annoying how much they will be trying it with him, hoping for that to happen. I think that like that's what your honest like appraisal at least of Minoru at this point. Like, is he always gonna be slotted as a 1B? Yeah, that's because they're chasing the idea that eventually there might be a moment that he becomes instantly a 1 just because of circumstances. Crowds turns are at the right person turns on the right person, and then suddenly BB Hulk is the hottest person in the company in 2014, and you've got to make a entire unit based around him and set up like the perfect like Dreamgate challenge for him at Kobe World. They're just going to constantly like play into it, hoping that they have the perfect hand at one point with Kota Minoru.
And here's the toxic relationship part. I fully believe that one day he could figure it out. I'm so out on him right now, and I nodded along to everything you just said. I was like, yeah, no, one day he'll get there. He's not there now, but yeah, one day he'll get there. It's just I can't quit this guy.
Yeah, and like for me, I've recently have engaged in something that I was really into for a long time, which is trading and selling Magic the Gathering cards, and like the sunk cost fallacy. And just like, I think that I can get money off this. I think this is going to happen. I'm going to hold on to this because I know it's worth more than this eventually. If I hold this card, I'll be able to do that. And I just think that when you have like invested this, like the idea that like, oh, when they turned it on with Kota Minoru, he was able to be elevated from rookie stature to Twin Gate champion to phenom very quickly at coming out of COVID in 2020. And I just like think that they just didn't realize that when he launched and he took off, he found the place where he should land at, and it just like they're going to keep on trying. I swear, they keep your 1 share of Kota Minoru stock case, because one day it's going to pay off.
Well, look, you're exactly right. They're going to keep on trying because we have the template of this with T-Hawk and then with Eta, where they're gonna drive this ship into a boulder, into an iceberg, if you will, if they have to. But they're gonna try to prove something to you.
Oh, absolutely so. And we will see with that. But I think you look at also like the situation with like the Twin Gate division, and like you're still kind of coming off of that Not Hug run, and who's to say what that I'm still not totally convinced that Not Hug was planned to drop the belts on that night. And it does kind of feel like that this twin division, like we talked about the Brave, where it's kind of wait and see with this, whereas I think entering 2025 and soon into Rey de Pareja season, you kind of have the heel team on top that it'll be interesting to see which babyface team comes out of Rey de Parejas in January and February to figure out who is going to be like their challengers, because this division kind of feels weirdly wide open now that they won it.
Well, you would certainly hope that Strong Machine J and UT would get a shot at the Twin Gate belts as long as Shimizu's out. I almost feel like they're owed that. And then pick any combination of gold class guys. I'm into that team. Throw Kakuta and Tanaka together, and that's fantastic. You've got Susumu and Kagetora back in the same unit. Okay, I'm into that. Maybe Monte and Flamita, they have a challenge. Like there's a lot that they can do with Minoru and Lee as champions. So despite all of my slander towards Kota Minoru just now, I'm very excited for their title run.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah, but that was the semi-main event. We went into our special tag match, Shun and Hamare versus the GHC Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, Naomichi Marufuji and Takashi Sugiura. No surprise in the finish case. It was an Olympic qualifier slam onto Hamare, but boy, for 10 minutes, this was just absolute fun watching Hamare just get the shit kicked out of him and trying to fight back. I had a fun time with this match. I adored it.
I really liked it. I wish it was twice as long as it was. I thought it was really getting cooking when it ended, and that was a real bummer.
Yeah. And it was all Hamare in this. Like Shun Skywalker got to kind of take the match off after like a couple fun instances of him using Hamare as a weapon. He got kind of an easy one there. Then he got to kind of still like sulk around and shout at people after the match after Hamari got beat.
Yeah, it was good stuff. It was the exact sort of match that you would think it would be.
Right, yeah, and I feel like as like the palate cleanser between the title matches, it was kind of nice to see that. Any other big thoughts you had on that?
No, it was exactly what it should have been.
Yeah. Open the Dragongate Championship. This was to decide the new champions after the Natural Vibes team had to vacate it due to Shimizu's suspension. Paradox becomes the new champions after a Tilt-A-Whirl DDT tribute from Susumu Yokosuka doing the Bible, or no, that is the Messiah DDT, into a first flash into the Gura Makakare onto Kato to get the win for Paradox. I think this was kind of the upset of the title matches of the night.
Yeah, I think so too. I should note, and I want to clarify this because Alan was right in the Discord. I have in my review that they pinned Kato. They did in fact pin Ishin because Ishin took Kagatora's finish, which was super impressive. So I do have to note that real quick. This match, when Hulk was getting beat down, was trending towards being a Gentleman's 3 Dragongate match that was entirely unremarkable and not spectacular in any way, shape, or form. And then Kagatora and Ishin got in the ring and they said, clear the lane. We're going to make this match worth watching. And my God, did they do that?
Kagatora gets something to sink his teeth into that we might be able to form a doctorate dissertation about this guy's career.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, because he was awesome. This Kato, my gosh, I have missed this guy so much. He looks great. He's now adding in new Canadian backbreaker moves, which we'll talk more about that at Korakuen. And I mean, he comes out with like his crazy jacket with a whistle in his mouth, like the Mad Cop. It is great. Just circle him in to like my weird. When we talk about awards projections, I'm already ready for the Yoshiki Kato versus Yamato match at an April Korakuen.
That feels really possible. I really like what they're doing with him. I don't think, this Kato Ishin Kai team needs the Dragongate belts. I feel like, and I feel like the reason they went with Paradox was we've literally seen that exact team win the belts, but that's not any new ground for this heel unit. Even going back to the earlier days of Zebras or even the later stage of RED, like we know what that looks like. The 3 ugly guys, the 3 big guys, they have the Dragongate belts. We got it. Paradox is something new. Paradox is something fresh. But Kato on the whole, I mean, my God, this guy came back firing on all cylinders. It's really impressive to see. And it kind of goes back to the point that I made when he got hurt was he had just finally turned the corner and had went from interesting prospect to interesting Dragongate wrestler. And for the first year of his career, kind of had the footwork of like a big Japan guy. He just didn't, he was cool to look at. He was something different, but he wasn't assimilating in a way that breeds success.
And he was a weird babyface.
He was a weird babyface. You're exactly right. And they turned him heel. And, I especially those YouTube uploads, like those are just lost to the memory and media consumption now. But if you go back and watch him in January and February on those house shows this year, this guy was moving and grooving and was carrying some really, really good Z-Brats matches. And to see him come back and just pick up right where he left off, I mean, it is fantastic to see.
Yeah, and Kato also feels like the kind of guy that you could figure into Rey de Parejas as a fun, partner for Ishin, partner for Kai. I don't know if you put him with Shun with that. But,
you do Shun and Hamare. You do Shun Hamare, you do Jason and Minoura, and
do you do a third Z-Brats team at that point, though?
Yeah, I think you have to do him and Ishin. And Kai becomes the odd man out there, even though they might. It wouldn't surprise me if they would do like Kato and Kai just so Kai can take some pinfalls. Even though they don't really have a problem beating Ishin either.
Or they could get back Johnny. You can do Kai and Johnny as the double count out jobber team, basically.
Yeah, that's what they did last year, and I would certainly be okay with 4 Rey de Parejas teams. I mean, we won't see any of the fucking tournament this year, so it doesn't matter. But I digress.
That's valid. Well, we don't need to digress on the next one, Case. You wrote it up perfectly. Hyo versus Kiyoshio, Tokyo, Japan, special singles match. It was a fucking shenanigan fest. That was just an overall waste of time, and we have to talk about now the issue with Hyo now getting so high on his own supply that to his own detriment, because it's now fully crossed over to that point.
See, I'm not bothered by Hyo. I think Hyo did exactly what he should have done in this match, and the primary housing of the Hyo, for lack of a better term, bullshit was happening in Prime Zone. So, it's excessive. It's a lot. It's very 1995 Shawn Michaels. To me, it hasn't crossed that line because there's no indication, at least in the building. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but there's no indication to me that this is losing steam at any point.
Oh, it's still over. I just think that it's just now to his detriment. Like that, him doing this, he's become almost all shtick.
Yeah, but I think he can turn that back on. I mean, he's without a unit right now. He's sort of in this weird career limbo. This feels like the time to do this. And now, of course, if he joins Gold Class, then it might be enhanced even more. Then I might have a problem with it because I really don't want anybody joining Gold Class right now. But I don't know. He's without a unit. He's on the come down from the biggest year in his career. The act is still over. I'm not bothered by any of the things that he's doing. I was bothered by Jiro coming in, Jiro being awful. And this is a guy who, and I said this in my review, I actually used to think people were too hard on him. If you remember, Mike, when OWE Japan was running shows, they were using Jiro. And I remember, like, at the time, buying into this idea of, like, well, for whatever reason, he's incredibly popular. I could see him being the, like, weird face of this promotion. I'm kind of okay with that. I'm kind of intrigued by that. But that was 5 years ago. He's horrendous now. He is a terrible pro wrestler with an off-putting presence. He is to me, he now has the same level of go-away heat that Dino does in DDT. It was just awful. And this all could have been salvaged. This could have been a 1-star match instead of a dud. But then he beat Hyo. And to me, and I wrote this in my review, that is the type of thing that I would expect from Noah or any other stupid wrestling company. And there's a lot of stupid wrestling companies out there. I cannot believe that they agreed to having him beat Hyo. That to me was completely and utterly outrageous.
Yeah, I don't see that Jiro has enough stroke or enough popularity ever, because if he did, he would be full-time somewhere.
Yes.
To justify feeding Hyo to him. Like, I get my issues with like the match are completely, like, my Hyo issues, like, those are two completely different things. Like, it makes no sense why Hyo lost his match. Considering the particulars of Kirishio Tokyo, Japan, someone who never drawn a dime. So you bring him onto the show for like a, hey, isn't that kind of a neat thing? No, it's a neat thing, and he's going to be looking up at 3 after a Samson driver. Like, that's the thing about this match that to me makes it so frustrating.
I ran through this in my review. In 9 years, I gave Shingo versus Gamma 1 star. I gave a punch Kness match in Cork and a dud because Kondo ran in and broke up the match. And then the ensuing punch versus Kondo Bravegate match at Champion Gate, I gave that a dud. And then later in 2018, there's an Ultimo 8-man that I gave a dud. It's been 6 years since I've given a match a rating that low. And this feels like in the 9 years that I reviewed Dragongate, other than that punch Kondo match, this feels like the worst match I've watched.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, I have such, like, not like negativity for Jiro. I just don't think he's been good ever, like, since like before the World 1 closure, or the Wrestle 1 closure. So I just had very low expectations, and I did not walk into that match expecting anything worth of a match rating, so I didn't rate it.
Good for you. No, it was atrocious.
Yeah, I just, like, it was something that was like, this is going to be a shenanigan fest. I'm going to adjust my expectations because of that. Then we had Mochizuki Fuji, Punch Umaga, and Mondai Ryu versus Ultimo Ginki, Toru Owashi, and Yasushi Kanda. It was an incredibly long law magistral. We don't need to talk anything else about that match. That was a match where they could have chopped some time off of, and I've been totally okay with it. It just felt like it went on forever. Match 2, Strong Machine J and UT versus Jackie Kamei and Daiki Yanagiuchi. It was a gold chip on Daiki. There was I felt like there was like a weird energy with this tag match in a way, to me.
Well, yeah, I'm sure Strong Machine J and UT were pissed that they were in match 2.
Yeah, but like the energy, like, also, like, it rubs off. Like, Jackie Kamei is someone that, like, I'm glad that he had the match he did today in Korakuen, because it felt like that we weren't going to see he was not going to pull that back out for him with this. It's just like Yanagiuchi, I felt like Daiki feels a little bit ascendant for the first time in his career, and it just like in a match that very much was like throwing things together, it just felt that way for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I thought it was a low-level TV match.
Right, and then the opener, Gold Class versus Luis Monte and D Courage, Madoka Kakuta and Ryoya Tanaka. It was Ben Penn spearing Tanaka out of his boots to win a really, really fun opener. Gold Class is a 3-person trio. I feel like that we're not going to get that they're going to be adding people back onto this unit real quickly, but I just really just adored like Monte. Just basically Monte and Rita throughout this match was an absolute blast.
I would not touch them until they break up that unit once and for all. They are so good as a trio, and then you factor in, if they ran Ben and Rita as a tag team, or Ben and Junior as a tag team, which they haven't really done, or Rita and Junior, which is the one that we all sort of want. There's no bad combination of guy here. And I just, it's going to suck when they add somebody else. And that other guy might be good. The unit might still be good. But I just would not touch this until it is time to officially blow it up. And with the way they're wrestling, I wouldn't blow it up for quite a while.
Yeah, the only problem is that they're going to have to get a 4th member for Rey de Parejas.
I mean, you could run Ben and Rita in that tournament and just have Junior fuck off in opening matches.
I mean, do they want Junior to be doing that, though, at this point in his career? I think they're going to.
I don't look at it as like, oh man, you got to have 2 Gold Class teams in Rey de Parejas, or you could put Junior with Daiki or something, and just call it a day.
Junior Fuda would make sense too.
Yeah, I don't see Fuda getting put in Rey de Parejas unless a missile crashes into Kobe Sambo Hall and they lose half the roster.
But they make sure we hear his theme song.
That's right. No, well, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's sort of the litmus test, is we would assume that Rey de Parejas is happening this year, either in February or March. 2023, It happened in February. 2024, it happened in March. Let me get this out of the way now, because Mike and I were looking at the schedule before we started recording. In February, there's a ton of TV. In March, there's almost none. So if they put Rey de Parejas in March, we are going to be pissed all over again. But we would assume that it happens there. I would love it if it happened in February. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, no, I think that, especially with how the TV rotation works, the earlier it is, the better to me. That was Final Gate for 2024. I thought it was a weaker undercard when you have like that Mochi Fuji and Hio match back to back with that weird kind of tag. But as soon as you got to the meat of this card, I mean, I thought it was an absolute blast with a match of the year contender as main event. What were your kind of takeaways overall?
Good show, not a great show. I would let me look through the big cards here. I'm trying to think of what was on Dangerous Gate this year. So that was Kakuta and Yamato. Okay, this was definitely better than Dangerous Gate. So World was better than this, and let me look at Dead or Alive, because I can't remember that far in the past now. I would put this show. You know what? This was better than Dead or Alive. This is probably the second best big show they had this year.
Which makes me like wonder, like, has this been a weak big show year, when I don't feel like that's been the case? I feel like it's been all genuinely pretty solid. But if we're saying that this is the number 2 big show of the year, I think that's a big takeaway. Is actually Gated Bayside maybe the big show of the year?
I fucking loved that show. Bayside, no, I mean, World was awesome. I thought this was a top tier World. But you know what it was? All the big shows this year had weaker undercards and really good main events. So I come away from this year feeling super positive about what is now the Big 6, formerly the Big 5. I liked all those shows. I mean, Yamato Kano was the weakest main event we got, and that match was still pretty strong. I just think it's a weird year. There wasn't a Shun versus KZ from World 2019 where you have this undercard match just go, whoa, what was this? Nobody saw this coming. We didn't really have one of those this year, at least that I can think of on any of the big shows. It was weaker undercards, but really strong business ends.
Yeah, and I think if you look at like, at least if we're comparing this like to like how big shows are, really I know I complained about the state of the undercard here. None of the undercard, other than how long the entrances were for that singles match, were over 10 minutes, to be fair.
No, they don't ever say they're welcome. I mean, that's their formula. And I would take some of the quicker, less spectacular undercards that we got this year compared to 2022 and 2023. I mean, look, this is my promotion of the year, and it's the first time I've said that since 2020, where I thought, they were far and away the best COVID promotion, but 2021 was AEW's year, and 2022 I would have given the nudge to AEW because of how bad the bad stuff in Dragongate was that year. Last year I thought was CMLL's year, and look, I've watched a ton of CMLL. I've watched everything from Dragongate, and I feel very comfortable saying that Dragongate has been the best promotion in the world this year. I really, and again, I say this being behind on All Japan, but some of those All Japan undercards are just so dry, and some of those main event, I'm not watching Hideki Suzuki and Suwama in 2024, so it's just some of those shows don't do anything for me. But
Fair.
CMLL has been very good this year. The stuff I've seen from All Japan I've really liked, but great year for Dragongate. They've done everything I would want them to do.
And I would say that they close out the year in a fashion that only Dragongate can close out a year in Tokyo with. Today's Fantastic Gate 2024. Traditionally, this would be the fan appreciation show. That's not how things are run nowadays. Instead, the main event of the show was the Battle of Gifu, the retirement match for Konomama Ichikawa versus New Japan Pro Wrestling president Hiroshi Tanahashi. Attendance 1552 for it. And I think when you talk about Dragongate really making the case for promotion of the year, this is kind of one of those shows that only Dragongate can put on, and I feel like Dragongate put on as good of these kind of shows that they ever have today.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Marigold debut, the All Japan Real World Tag League Finals, and the two G1 shows in Korakuen did 1,500 even, and Dragongate claimed 1,550. So, get mad at it all you want. Numerically, I believe this is the highest attended Korakuen Hall show of the entire year.
Yeah, I am right now looking at that up for it.
Because there wasn't like a weird produce show that would have beat this out this year, I don't think. I can't remember one.
No, the situation you would have had this year is like you would have situations like, okay, so DDT claimed 1650 for the Taichi match.
That's okay. I gotta send somebody an email and correct that. But you're right. The DDT show did outdraw this, and that DDT show there looked like there were 4,000 people in Korakuen.
Yeah, and then if you want to talk about Proto Show, Takayama Empire did 1701.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So there was a produce show that outdrew that. That's good to know. But in terms of your main line, All Japan, New Japan, I mean that DDT show was a special show given that debut. This is still, look, it's 1,500 people in Korakuen. That is what we now recognize as a sellout, and good for them, man. This was a show that deserved to have a packed, hot crowd, and it got just that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to such an extent that the company knew so much what kind of show and what kind of opportunity it was that GM Ryo Saito announced the sellout and made a big point of going, hey, I see some faces in the crowd I haven't seen in a couple of years. Hopefully you see what you see that we are still the Dragongate that you love, and you come back and see us so that we now don't have to rely on this thing to completely sell out the show. But it was not just the should we talk about the Stalker retirement match up top?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, Konomama Ichikawa, Stalker, as it's more commonly known as, ended his 26-year career with his match with Hiroshi Tanahashi. Of course, as everyone expected, it was a two-fall match. Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated him first in 16 seconds, and we should stop here before we talk about the second match, because the way the company played this off was exactly how you'd want them to play off Stalker immediately losing his retirement.
It was perfect. And it was just something that I've come to appreciate about Dragongate, and it's not something that could have been noted in the first decade of this company. It's something we rarely saw in the second decade of this company. It's really only in recent memory that we've seen more and more of this. Pro wrestlers, by and large, are not good people. You shouldn't think of them as good people. They're not role models. They're not political allies. And life is easier when you just accept that and move on from the possibility of it, with rare exception. I do, however, like in this carny industry that is filled with people who I do not align with in my thoughts and beliefs, by and large, I do like the rare instance when pro wrestling becomes really classy. And we saw that with the Uha farewell in 2015, and then the Ricochet farewell and the Tozawa farewell. And then we've seen it with these retirements with Yoshino and then Kness and now Stalker, where it's just really nice. And these shows are emotional and they're fun. And Dragongate is just better at this than fucking Muto is. You know, this was it was just perfect. I really, really loved what I saw. You know, the first match and then the sped up 10 bell salute, which is the funniest spot they've ever done. And then the rematch with all the heat and the flash pins on Tanahashi that looked like they were going to beat him. I mean, Mike, you wrote the article. It's a tremendous article. It's on voicesofwrestling.com. You and I have watched more Stalker Ichikawa than just about anybody else there is. I couldn't have designed or asked for or watched a better retirement match than what I saw here. It was heartwarming, and very rarely in this industry do you get to say that, but it's nice when you do. This was very, very earnest and very heartwarming.
Yeah, I feel like in an industry where you see kind of like retirements or such being like not necessarily like I mean they were made cheap in the 80s, but it is one of those like things that a lot of the recent major retirements, it becomes more than just celebrating the wrestler. It becomes like, oh, not to do like an AEW thing. It's like, oh, the Bucks get themselves into Sting's retirement match and X, Y, and Z, or the whole Muto delusion that Cyber Fight put themselves through for a couple of years. Instead, what we saw with Ichikawa's retirement, and something that you say classy, I say like this is the correct thing, because if you were sitting in the room case and if you were Ryo Saito and Ichikawa came to you and said, hey boss, can't do it anymore, it's my body can't take it, we got to figure out when I need to retire, the one answer that you should have immediately is, well, for Stalker Ichikawa, the one person who he needs to have his retirement match with is the biggest star in pro wrestling in Japan of this era. It has to be Hiroshi Tanahashi, and it has to go exactly the way that it went on this show. And the fact that Tanahashi has always been game when he's been outsider makes it even better. Like, I mean, I adored Hiroshi Tanahashi in DDT case.
Oh my God, yes.
Because it was something that you could tell this guy was just having the best time of his life, just going in there and going like, hi, I'm Hiroshi Tanahashi. I should not be here right now, but now that I am here, I'm going to completely I'm going to play up on the stereotypes here. And then at the end of this, we're all going to come to a better appreciation of each other. But until then, I'm going to have my fun here. Hiroshi Tanahashi did exactly what you want Hiroshi Tanahashi here. The thing that like so caught me into this match when we got to like the final was like the fact that we don't really give Ichikawa enough credit for being his size and what he had to physically endure for the last 26 years, because that's what I was thinking about during the rolling twists and shouts was, Jesus Christ, this guy's a great all-time seller, but my God, he ragdolled himself. So like, no wonder it had to be this way. And yeah, to me, this was the one correct way to do the greatest comedy wrestler of all time's retirement. Like, there's nothing you could have done to make this better in my mind.
No, it was beautiful. And I've said this over the last year when I've reviewed the Ichikawa matches, you know, in writing, is I feel like, and you know, I sound to not pat myself on the back, but like, I feel like I'm pretty good at writing about Dragongate, kind of something that I specialize in. I've never figured out a way to write about Ichikawa matches. I don't know how to put into words what he does. And this is going to be, you know, a tremendous challenge when I sit down over the next few days and try to write about this, because I feel some level of responsibility to capture this moment and to capture this feeling and to have this written word so that, you know, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people are aware of the magnitude of this sort of match, which was, you know, he's wrestling the president of New Japan. Bushi was there as a fan. Lady C was there as a fan. You brought Shisa in. You know, all the Ultimo Dragon Gym guys are at ringside, and just this sort of just beautiful display of friendship and affection. And it was just this really nice thing to see. And it's it's going to be really hard to put into words just how emotional this was and how special it was.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of find ourselves in like this like position where this is like I know a lot of people like have like used the phrase like one of one here, and it's just like a unique thing. I know, okay, so I never really got a point to touch on this here, but you brought this up when we were like, when we chat throughout the week. This feels like one of like the moments for Dragon Gate where it doesn't happen as much as it should, but the entire wrestling world in Japan kind of focused over to Dragon Gate today, and the fact that given everything, it seems like that there's a potential for the first Dragon Gate Shoe Pro cover since Masato Yoshino retired.
That's right. And look, that's partially just the fact that it was a down week for All Japan and a down week for New Japan. And I know Noah has a show basically at the time we're recording this, but it's a Noah show. Who cares? This feels like the type of thing that, Ichikawa should be on the cover of that magazine. And I'm going to editorialize to some degree here because I'm really only using a small sample of Twitter followers that I have, but something that I've noticed about the native fans that are hardcore Dragon Gate people, people that I sort of rely on for in the building opinions as these shows happen, is they are really bothered by the fact that the last time they were on a Shoe Pro cover was Yoshino's retirement, and before that it was Pac as Dreamgate champion. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that if you're a Dragon Gate fan of a year, 10 years, 25 years, at some point you felt slighted by the wrestling media at large. And this is one of those things that is really digging at people. And it would feel so poignant and so beautiful if Ichikawa was the one to end up on that cover this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, usually, if you've been down this road with the media and the Dragon Gate relationship, you end up like Case and I, where Case, was there any single surprise you had about Tokyo Sports Awards this year?
No, Yamato noticeably absent from even the Technique Award this year.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get to Shinya Aoki. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think Yamato 3 belts is kind of like a thing of like, hey, I need an award here. You haven't given us an award for a while. The balance seems to be completely broken here. But yeah, everything about this, and then you'd even see for how big is this, and just like we're not like spouting off hot air here. Shima doing a tweet to mention Stalker Ichikawa's retirement, in as much of like the having like the perfect photo encapsulating the two relationship of like of Shima helping lace up Stalker's boots, and it just was like, no, this is like the moment that is bigger than the squabbles of the group. And it felt like, at least from one side, that one side seemed to recognize it, at least today.
Yeah, it was the thing that Jay said that you've hammered home since that really freaked me out, was not even in Dragon Gate, but just in Japan, there's not another Stalker coming down the pipeline. There's not even really a great comedy wrestler coming down the pipeline. Stalker was a one of one, but we're kind of saying goodbye to some sort of archetype. And again, Baba's comedy was way different than Ichikawa's comedy, but we're saying goodbye to something that has existed since the very beginning of wrestling in Japan. And I don't count Dino as an example of that, because it's so not my thing. It's so obtuse in the way that it's presented. I don't really consider him to be a part of that family. I think you have to be funny to be considered a comedy wrestler. And I've certainly laughed at Kikutara in my day. The Baba comedy matches served their purpose, but Ichikawa's he's the best to ever do it. I respect the people rallying around getting him on the Observer Hall of Fame ballot. If he's there, I'll vote for him. But it's not my thing. In terms of the way that I want to remember Ichikawa. Again, more power to the people doing that. But yeah, it hit me, just the Tanahashi thing. This has been one of the most consistent things in all of the changes of Dragon Gate, whether it was 2013 to 2016, the sort of golden era where you're watching shows live and at 4:00 in the morning, Stalker Ichikawa is going to come out and he's going to do this great thing. Or even after Shima left, it's like, okay, well, now he's going to have the Marufuji match, and it's going to be this whole great thing. And then he survives COVID and he comes out the other side of that, and now Ichikawa's gone, and it obviously doesn't have the magnitude that, say, Masato Yoshino's retirement does, but man, it leaves a hole in this promotion, and it leaves a hole in the industry that is something that I really hadn't thought about until he announced his retirement, until we talked to Jay, where it's just there's there's not going to be another one of him. He is the only guy that exists in this universe, and it's really sad to see him go. But I like what Dragongate said at the beginning of the show. This was not a sad night. Ichikawa would not want you to be sad. This is going to be a night of fun and a night of laughter, and my God, was it.
Yeah, I have to say the way that they did the rope run spot, I thought was the funniest.
It's awesome. The whole. I mean, Mike, we've watched hundreds of Ichikawa matches, and even the Kobe Sambo Hall show ones on the worst Kobe Sambo Hall show possible. I've never not enjoyed a match of his. It's the highest hit rate imaginable. And then you think about all the big matches he's had. Matsukazu Funaki and Kawada and Takayama and Choshu and now this Tanahashi one. It's unbelievable. The guy is unbelievable, and he saved one of his best for last. I was quite moved by this match, and again, the post-match ceremony. Ultimo out in a suit, President Keto not wearing his signature tracksuit, but him wearing a suit, and President Keto appearing on camera, which never happens. It's very nice. And pro wrestling is often not nice, and it's very touching to me in the rare instances when we have moments like this.
Yeah, it just felt right, and that was like my biggest kind of takeaway from that. I mean, even to the point of the way they handled him getting doing the toss in the air, and just the way that he crashed out. It's like, yep, nope, this is how it has to be.
That's great. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was really, it reminded me, this is a very, very, very odd comparison, but like the first time Shingo wrestled Ospreay, I left going, this was everything that I wanted it to be. It was a dream match that was perfect. I couldn't change this match in any way, shape, or form. And in a weird way, Tanahashi versus Ichikawa was the same thing.
And if you want to talk about perfection, maybe in a form, We Are Dragongate was the semi-main event of the Fantastic Gate show. Natural Vibes, Strong Machine J, KZ, UT, D Courage, Daya, Madoka, Kakuta, Ryoya Tanaka, Shun Skywalker, Kota Minoura, and Ishin for Zebrats. Daya won with the Reptilian Rana on Ishin after perhaps one of the most I'm trying to use this word appropriate here. One of the most batshit crazy multi-man tags without having any real plunder whatsoever in Dragon System history.
I'll start with a question. Is it your Dragon Gate match of the year?
No, but it was 4.5 stars, and I liked it more than Yamato and Daya.
I think it is my Dragon Gate match of the year.
Oh, right. Take the wheel then, man.
I've got right now on the spreadsheet, I've got Mochizuki versus Mochizuki Jr. at 4 3/4, and I've got Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi versus Susumu and Yamato at 4 3/4, and I would have that tag match as top 10 worldwide and definitely the best thing that I've seen in Dragon Gate this year. And I kind of think this match was better. Now, granted, that was in April. I haven't seen that tag match in a long time, but there was a level of importance with this match. It goes back to the Saito promo that he cut during intermission where, hey, I've seen a lot of faces I haven't seen in a long time. We're still kicking. This is Dragon Gate. This is who we are in 2024. And this match was not booked by accident. Mike, what did I say 2 months ago? I said, this promotion is killing it in Korakuen. The thing that we're missing is a 3-way trios match. And they gave us that here. They gave us the lineup that I wanted to see, minus Shimizu for obvious reasons. And you know what? It was exactly what this match should have been. It is the type of thing where no other promotion can do this. No other promotion can cycle through the spots they did. Daya continues his elevation coming out of this. So it was not only a great match, it served a purpose. And as I sit here a few hours removed from watching the show, I think it's the best Dragon Gate match I've seen this year.
It was definitely the Dragon Gate kind of match that if you are someone who enjoys the sprint style, that you will see out of it, you will pretty much feel your irises just grow, like your pupils will enlarge during this. And it's wild, doing a lot in a match and where you have probably one of the more wild non-plunder crowd brawls that they've had in recent memory. I mean, to the extent Ishin was really able to just feel himself, and in a 3-way match where you're usually talking about the teamwork and the combinations here, my biggest takeaway is Ishin found where the Strong Machines had masks on, and he decided to play Row the Boat with Strong Machine J in front of them and cut a promo partway through the match that everyone was cackling after.
So I guess the way I want to tackle this, I almost feel like we should go guy by guy and just
Okay.
highlight. I have a lot to say on this match. Ishin, you're right. Ishin, I was talking to somebody today who hadn't seen this show yet, and they were, they knew it was a big show, kind of wanted a little bit of a primer, and I was like, Ishin he has the body of Michinoku Pro Dick Togo, but he's really becoming Naruki Doi.
Yeah.
Like he's this loudmouth heel who should never be leading, but should always be second in command, and that is what he's doing. And the charisma thing, I mean, I didn't see it coming. I didn't think Ishin ever had this in him. When he debuted, I thought his brother was the more charismatic of the two. And now all of a sudden he has turned it up. And again, I mean, do you have any doubt just from what we know about his promo skills, the people we've talked to that speak the language, Mike, that, if they were going to wheel out at the end of this show Ishin's darts, that he could have carried a 25-minute talk segment?
Oh yeah, absolutely so. And I think that that's been a fun kind of surprise to the company because it's been really building up over time, it appears. So like the idea that they were willing to, and this was very, Naruki Doi is the right label to attach to it because it did very much have the energy, very much of heel turn into Mad Blanky Naruki Doi just immediately stopping a match to start chewing out the crowd.
Yes, exactly. So Ishin was phenomenal. Shun Skywalker, the way that he's able to pick his spots is just remarkable. Ishin did a ton in this match. KZ did a ton in this match. Daya was all over the place. Tanaka was all over the place. Shun wasn't all over the place, but whenever he was in the ring, it felt super memorable. And the way that he's able to come in and just bicycle kick his way into a match, which might sound, humorous to some degree, but it's a real strength that he has, that he can just come in the ring, hit a move, and immediately he is the one that everybody's going to focus on. I once again, I thought Shun was utterly brilliant here.
Yeah, it's like if you're playing No Mercy, as soon as Shun hits the ropes, you already know that the CPU is hitting the big boot and it hits every time, and you can't get yourself out of it. And it's one of those things that, at least for Shun, I guess, like over like his matches that he had over this 3-day period, you do get to see that he was not necessarily being like prime worker boots Shun, but it always was the right moments. And I think that him doing his thing was like the real focus there. The one person that I actually came away with in this match and I went like, all right, this for me was exactly what I wanted to see out of him in these kind of matches, was Strong Machine J.
Strong Machine J was great in this match, and it's kind of this was a good seal of approval and just a reminder that he can hang in the most chaotic, in the biggest Dragongate finishing stretch possible, because that's always been a concern of ours. Is
absolutely, yeah.
This guy's fundamentally very good. He's become a very strong worker. Does he have, not to make a pun with Machine here, but does he have the next gear that all of these main eventers seem to have? And you saw it here. I thought he passed with flying colors.
Yeah, and it really felt like that you got to see all of those kind of stages within this match. And I don't know. It did at a certain point. The one thing I would say is that you had the sprint excess almost to a point where it was like, Minoura like just like cratered people with like this jumping high knee at a certain point. It got excess to the point of almost like there was a moment in this match where I had the please be precise kind of thought in my head happening during this.
Well, let me just read from my notes here. Let me go through this whole sequence they did. So Shun comes in the ring. He tries to boot Kakuta. Kakuta ducks. He boots Minoura. That leads to Minoura and Kakuta hitting the ropes. Kakuta goes for a hip attack. Minoura sidesteps it. Minoura comes back with a jumping knee. Kakuta sidesteps it. Minoura then comes back, hits him with the knee. Strong Machine J enters the ring. He does the misdirection into the power slam. From there, Ryoya Tanaka comes in. He does the handspring ace crusher. That's the Strong Machine J out of the ring. He goes for what he calls the dimension body. Tanaka does on Shooter Skywalker, that sort of step up cross body. Skywalker drop kicks him out of midair. He then goes for the swinging rock bottom, and then he was going to hit that knee first moonsault. But when he goes to do the moonsault, KZ grabs him, hits the B-boy onto Tanaka, doing the move onto Skywalker in the process. That 40 seconds of action is just any naysayer that's like, well, it's not my Dragongate. The guys aren't as good as they used to be, whatever. Bullshit. I find me another company doing that. any era of this promotion, whether it was the original class, whether it was the T2P guys, whether it was New Hazard, Real Hazard 2007, 2008, whether it was Matt Blanky in 2014 with Monster Express, this holds up with any era. And I thought throughout this entire match, there was one uncharacteristically sloppy sequence with Tanaka and Ishin at the beginning of the match. Other than that, this match was flawless. And I really, really feel more removed from watching this, and it was the best thing that I've seen this year. And then you have this crazy finish where Tanaka hits the cross saber on Ishin, and then Daya has really figured out a way to make that reptilian Rana look better than it ever has. And so you have this emphatic finish. Daya wins. You feel great. 4 3/4 stars.
Yep, absolute just delight of a match. We had as the semi-main event of the show. Before that, we had a 8-man tag. It was Paradox versus the guys who are even older than Paradox: Yamato, Susumu, Kagatora, Hulk, Mochi Fuji, Kondo, and Owashi. Just a really, like, I don't know if it was because, like, the sequence of matches that they had here, it just felt like a very much a good vibes Atomicos with this one. Yamato got the one with the Frankensteiner of the Almighty after a Don Fuji Gato clutch that was 2.99999. We almost had our first Korakuen of the year main event set up, and it was going to be Don Fuji versus Yamato.
They might have made a mistake not doing that.
I mean, one last Don Fuji dance. Like, no one's going to be expecting Don Fuji ever again to be having any sort of a Dreamgate claim.
Yeah, I'm really sad that wasn't the finish. Now, you talked about this being a feel-good match. I'll say it. I almost went 4 stars on this. I went 3 3/4 and feel
I was
very
3.5. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And look, a lot of that was just added to the idea that, hey, Fuji almost beat this guy, and I love that for him. But the whole match, I thought these guys were on. This was not an off-night Korakuen for Owashi. This was not an off-night Korakuen for Kondo. All these guys brought it. And it's a small thing. Ultimately, it's probably meaningless, probably irrelevant. But for Dragon Kid to be out, and for Susumu Yokosuka, of all people, to be like, you know what? I'm going to start doing some of his moves. There is nothing this guy can't do. He is just absolutely incredible, and I love him dearly.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, I'm going to do a multi-rotation DDT. And we're like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, no, of course you are. Yeah, you can do anything you want, of course.
Yeah. Susumu Yokosuka really can do whatever he wants. That was our return from intermission match. During intermission, that was when Sairyo came out and said, hey, stick around. And he came out on the right note, because this was before the match I was most excited for on this show. Mexico versus Japan. Jackie Kamei and Rita versus Luis Monte and Flamita. Mexico wins with a Velta finale. I was 4 1/4 stars on it, and I just felt like my brain got melted. There was a 3 rotation to Harris that Rita did that was one of the crispest things I've seen in a long time.
Okay, you were super high on this. I feel like I'm the low man on this, and I still really liked it. I'm at 3 3/4, but I feel like I'm like not invited to this party that everybody else went to, because everybody liked it more than I did.
I think there was a bunch of us who were just like, let's fucking go with this match.
By the time Monte did the powerbomb spot, it had that energy of just like, these guys all seem kind of maybe angry at the booking that's gone on over the last few months, with the exception of Flamita. And this has a frantic energy to it that is really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I feel like that frantic energy was really what got me. The powerbomb onto the jackknife. Monte really enjoyed the fact that he was very much still the biggest person in this match. Do you think that Kamei and Gold Class could work out? I know you really want to keep them at 3. I feel like, though, you have Benkei and like his little brothers, and that might be the path forward, and Kamei is like the perfect guy for that.
No, not really. I don't think he has that type of charisma. I don't want to say that level of charisma, because obviously he's super. Yeah, he doesn't. Like, I don't see he and Junior, hanging out at the karate gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is going to date me a little bit. Rita and Junior would both shout out Steve Holt. Kamei would be confused.
I would also be confused.
That was an Arrested Development joke about.
Okay, I should have got that. I apologize. No, it's
dated.
Kame was awesome in this match, and he clearly, shocker, he has chemistry with Rita. Guess what? So does everybody, as it turns out. But no, I don't think he in Gold Class would be a good move, because you have to be cocky to be in Gold Class. That's kind of what's working for them, and I don't think he has that type of charisma at all.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. It just was something that maybe it was the vibes of this team that got me with it. And I was like, maybe Kamei can work out. But yeah, he does not feel like the kind of guy who would just text you his weightlifting routine.
No. Now, we've watched a lot of Flamita over the years.
Absolutely. Yes, we have.
When did he all of a sudden have this ability to hit what Dragongate calls the Bermuda Triangle, the middle rope moonsault to the floor from to the outside?
Orihara. Yeah.
Yeah. When did he start being able to do that in like half a second? Because he did it at Final Gate, and then he did it here, where he super kicked, I think, Rita, and then snap of the fingers, he's on the outside doing a moonsault to the floor. I've just never. That's like a new thing for him. He's obviously done the big Asai moonsault before, but now the corner moonsault is a new move, and he might do it better than anybody that I've ever seen do it.
Yeah, I guess there was a part of me that just assumed that he always did that move a little bit.
Maybe he did, but he's doing it now in a way that's super flashy and super noticeable.
Yeah, no, Flamita, and also news came that we're going to get a lot more Flamita next year, which I'm definitely here for. It's I feel like he finally has, after everything that happened to him after he left Dragongate, and then like working Rudo for so long and all of this, like he now has taken what he's learned from that and has like applied it in a way that I did not necessarily think that he would do, because he was like very willing to turn on the Rudo switch here and then turn it back off, do that kick Orihara. Like
it's a really good story this year. The last 5 years of Dragongate has been defined by the people that have left, not the people that have come back. And for Flamita to come back in May and June, nothing else really guaranteed, and to do what he's done, it's remarkable. And I apologize if I'm speaking out of school here, but we're putting together the SFM 50 right now, and I feel very strongly that Flamita should be in that 45 to 50 range, because while his sample size is much lower than a lot of other people that are being considered, I mean, the guy's hit rate is absurd. You forget anything that he's done in America or Mexico this year, and there's not a ton of it. Like, he didn't really go back to Mexico and work a ton of indie dates. He kind of is a man without a home right now there. But you just look at what he's done in Dragongate in May and June, and then November and December. It's astonishing. This guy, even when he's not having the 4-star spreadsheet level great match, you come away from every Flamita match going, God, this guy's good. Like, this is the Flamita that we yearned for years, and we finally got him. And I feel very, very strongly that he's one of the 50 best wrestlers in the world this year, in the same way that I feel TJP is one of the 50 best wrestlers in the world this year, or the luchador that I like so much that I'm going to butcher his name. Who's the grappler that I like in CMLL? I always forget how to say his name.
I've been made fun of for how I pronounce the CMLL name recently. So
hold on, I've got a bookmark. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because now it's going to bug me.
I think it's pronounced Jelua or Jua.
I think it's pronounced like Shelia.
Shelia. That makes sense. Yeah, no, Shelia makes sense. Yeah.
Goddamn, Cubs had a tweet that explained it. Let me search it real quick. And
I will entertain you for precisely 20 seconds. I have, just because of seeing who was all at the Stalker Ichikawa show, I've ended up on Minoru Tanaka's Twitter account.
Yeah.
And he eats perhaps one of the most disgusting things that he says he could eat millions of. And it is a Japanese convenience stores, they have all the prepared sandwiches set up there. It's a whipped cream sandwich. It's 2 pieces of bread and a whole load of whipped cream.
That sounds awesome.
It sounds like, oh, this sounds like a great treat. I look at it and it looks like it's just disgusting. But yeah, there we go. What does Cup say how to pronounce his name?
Shelwa.
Shelwa? Okay,
so
Shelwa.
That is the luchador in CMLL shows. He's been feuding with Guerrero Maya Jr. It is XELHUA. It is Shelwa. And I think he and TJP and Flamita all sort of have a similar case where they don't have the volume that other wrestlers do, but every time I watch them, I think, God, they are just magnificent pro wrestlers.
Yeah, I feel like Jelwa is kind of now that guy that it's like, hey, check out the Jelwa match right now.
Well, you can tell all the like Sakunda Kata dorks, they have to be contrarian because they're off CMLL right now, even though it's awesome. And I love Phil Schneider, no disrespect, but Phil Schneider, like, I don't think had watched any of them. And I just tweeted at him. I was like, dude, you got to watch the Hechicero match and the Guerrero Maya Jr. Match from Coliseo, the one fall match they had. That should be their guy. It's a shame Bill Thompson isn't around to lie about all the Shellwall matches that he's seen anymore. But this is like, this is the DVDVR core guy that should be celebrated in Lucha circles. There should be really obnoxious people praising Showa and degrading Mascara Dorada, and that's not happening, which is blowing my mind.
No, you're absolutely right about that.
Anyways, Flamita's really good.
Flamita is really good. This match, I just adored for it. Also, adored this old man 6-man tag we had. Genki, Kanda, and Araken, all members of the Torimon second class, along with Ichikawa, versus Ultimo, Shisa, and Sachihoko Boy with Choco Flake, Keiichi. And Araken versus MMA Rita is the match I want to see so badly now at a Buyuden show.
Look, I don't have a ton to say on this, but it greatly warms my heart whenever I see Super Shisa pop up. So I was very nice to see that.
Yeah, and we got a really good Jay joke about extensions. About
Yes,
Kinkies. Yeah, and then we had Rookies versus Z-Brats. This was a 8-man tag. We had Ryo Fuda, Mochizuki Jr., Daiki Yanagiuchi, Akihiro Sahara versus Kai, Jason Lee, Yoshiki Kato, and Hamare. A Canadian backbreaker into a face crusher is now a new move that Yoshiki Kato is doing. He did it on Daiki Yanagiuchi. My note on the new finish, cool as hell.
So the trios match, the semi-main, is the best Dragongate match I've seen this year. This, to me, is one of my favorite matches of the entire year. And I was talking to somebody earlier today, same person I was talking about Ishin, and I was like, well, it's like Dick Togo and Naruki Doi. I sent them a really, really long message about this match and the fact that there's 8 guys in this match and 6 of them are under the age of 30. Kato's 28 and he got a late start. Daiki's 26 and he got a pretty late start. Sahara's 24, Fuda's 23, Junior's 22, and Hamare's only 20. And then Jason Lee is only 32, which he's been wrestling so long, I actually thought he was much older. I was surprised to find out he's only 32. There's no other promotion, and I say this with the trios matches all the time, and to some degree it's true, but other promotions try it. There's not another promotion, unless I'm just way off the mark on some Joshi promotion, but again, I'm not paying attention to any of that, just out of time, that can have this style of match where you have 6 guys under the age of 30, all less than 3 full years into their career. Fuda's the oldest. He debuted in November of 2021, but he's missed so much time due to injury. It's not like he's wrestled 3 full years. These are the guys leading the charge in this match. And you look at how poorly AEW has done with your Lee Johnsons and your Nick Camarados and your Action Andretti's. New Japan takes too long to develop guys, and so it's impossible to have a match like this with guys under 30 in this sort of position. All Japan doesn't have that depth. Noah's never had that depth. This is as much of a This Is Dragongate match as the trios match was. And I really, really adored this. I thought this was the second best match of the night.
Yeah, for New Japan, someone who's considered like rocket shipped is Bolton Oleg, who's turns 32 in February.
Oh my God, yeah.
But yeah, and you get to see in this match something we really have not gotten to see a whole lot, which is Hamare against his classmates,
which was awesome. And Jay made this is one. Jay had a great week. Jay is really the best commentator there is in wrestling right now. He was absolutely outstanding in Daya versus Yamato, but this was actually the match that I thought Jay was best in this entire weekend, because he was able to weave in all of these narratives about Sahara and Hamare, and then where Hamare is in his career compared to Daiki and compared to Fuda, and where does Mochizuki Jr. play into this? And here's Kai and Jason. These are the veterans of this unit. But then here's Kato, and Kato's doing all these things to Daiki. There was a million stories going on in this match, and this, to me, is really where Jay shines. It's not the move-by-move stuff, but the way that he's able to narrate these stories. He was brilliant here. Sahara was awesome. Hamare was awesome. Junior was awesome. And Daiki and Kato once again stole the show. I adored this for what it was.
Yeah, I thought that this really was just such a strong performance for like Sahara. He especially getting the opportunity on this, because like he's not really gotten anything since he debuted, and seeing him like pair up against Hamare, I thought that was a real fun combo here. But then it gets back to Daiki and Kato, and I feel like that maybe what's going to happen is eventually that Daiki is going to have like a singles match with Kato, and I feel like that might do a lot of things to kind of settle where what's happening with like the relative new rookies and their relative just kind of hanging around without units and groups at this point.
Well, somebody brought up in the Discord that they have the depth to do another rookie ranking tournament with all the guys in this match, and that I would really like to see. The other thing that I would like to see is some sort of single elimination multi-man match where you throw Daiki in with Paradox and have them wrestle Z-Brats, and there you have Daiki pin Kato, and that gets his first win out of the way, and I think that'd be a great moment.
Yep, I'd be here for that. Match 2, Punch Tominaga and Mondai Ryu versus the hottest new reuniting. I know Minoli reunited and formed the new Twin Gate champions. Shut Up or Roll Up, Takashi Yoshida and Ho-Ho Lun reunited once again. Pineapple Bomber gets the win for Roll Up and Shut Up. And Ho-Ho was kind of surprised how well the match was going for him, considering he was on Yoshida's side and not teaming with either Mondai Ryu and Punch Tominaga.
Very fun match.
Yeah, and then we opened up with Hyo versus Benkei. And this really kind of, I feel like this was the gold class fear match, but Benkei got the win pretty definitively with the mid-air spear. There was no invite, just kind of a moment of checking on Hyo and then going straight to the back.
Did not love this.
It was 3 flat for me.
It was 3 flat for me as well. Just a far cry from the Final Gate opener that had all sorts of life and energy.
Yeah, this one felt kind of like Hyo still had more crowd work he needed to get out of his system.
Yeah, and hopefully he got out of his system.
Yeah, because I feel like he's addicted to crowd work, man. I would
be too if I was him. I mean, my God.
I mean, like, you can be like over, but like he's going crowd work like he's Dusty in Florida at this point. Which I don't, again, like in his scenario at his age, being in this, like I feel like that this is leaning into it's got him so far that he probably has the desire to do that more. But boy, given Final Gate and this show, it did especially feel like that he is getting a little high on his own supply.
I think that's fair.
Hey, and it was a interesting way to kick off the final Korakuen show of the year in Tokyo. I think that this was probably my favorite Korakuen of the year, to be quite honest. Where do you feel like coming out of this show, where do you have it stacking up?
Oh, man, that's a good question. It's probably got to be. I mean, those Rey de Parejas shows were really good.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to that tournament so much now. Again, assuming it's happening in 2025 and assuming we'll see any of it, but it's got to be up there. Their run from the second June Korakuen when Yamato when Ben won the belt, to the end of the year is a really impressive run. You know what? I might have the September Korakuen over this just by a nose, but that show just had everything that I personally like on it.
That's fair.
The Hamari debut, the Hamari turn, the Valletta return, the crazy main event. That hour and a half of wrestling is really hard to beat for me. But let's see. I mean, I went 4 3/4 on the semi-main. There's the Ichikawa match, which speaks for itself. I went 3 3/4 on the veterans tag. I went 3 3/4 on Team Japan versus Team Mexico. And I went 3 3/4, and I might go 4 by the time I write my review on the rookies versus Z-Brats. So that is really hard to beat from a match quality perspective.
Yeah, but like that's what I kind of felt myself looking at my match, looking at my PDF that I have of notes here. I'm like, I feel like that this goes up there, but you're right about that September Korakuen, at least for like a singular 90 minutes where it's just pure Dragongate goodness. And
well, the nice thing about this show was that it lived up to expectation. The fun thing about the September show was that there's a whole 90 minutes that none of us saw coming.
That's fair. No, that is entirely fair. And that is Dragongate, at least from a full production standpoint for 2024. They have 2 more Kobe Sambo Hall shows. One of them on the 22nd, one on the 27th. And I would look at that 27th one to be kind of the farewell hometown fan appreciation show there. But that's what is left for 2024 here in Dragongate, guys.
They don't normally do the 2 Kobe shows. They just do the 1 normally, right?
Or I feel like they have a little bit of distance where there might be an early December or a late November Kobe Sambo.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm alone on the 22nd. I might stay up and watch that show. I'm kind of excited to see if that's a good card. I might watch that live because I got nothing else going on.
Yeah, and I feel like that we probably won't. There was a chance we actually could have had the cards pop up by the time we were done.
No,
here,
we got the show for the 18th, which is the Strong Machine J Kai Homecoming show. Imagine if this was uploaded on YouTube, Mike. Let me run down the card real quick. Masaki Mochizuki versus Ryofuda. Hyo and Daiki Yanagiuchi versus Coach Minoura and Yoshiki Kato. Ultimo, Don Fuji and Jackie Kame versus Monte, Genki, and Kanda. Daya and Kakuta versus Jason Lee and Ishin. Ben and Rita versus Kai and Shun Skywalker. And Strong Machine J, KZ, Flamita, and UT versus Yamato, BB Hulk, Sumi Kosuka, and Kagatora.
Yeah, I like that card a lot.
Yeah, boy, would I like to watch every single match on that show.
Yeah, I'm interested in match 2 just because seeing more Daiki and Kato together.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's man, if only we had like a video streaming service that would I don't know, film and upload those shows. Boy, would that be something.
Would be great. But Case, I think that's going to do it for this week unless you have anything else.
That's it. We got one more episode. We got 2 more episodes left of 2024. We've got a year in review, and we will find the time to squeeze in right before 2025 a rewind and rewatch that we will talk about at a later date.
Yep, that's right. With the way that schedule is for us for the remainder of the year, we will let y'all know when those shows will be going up. But for just travel and everything, we will figure that out ourselves in. But that will do it for us here this week. You can follow us on social media at Open VoiceGate. Case is at _ in your case. I'm at Fujiheya. Thanks for listening to Open VoiceGate. We'll be back with you before the end of 2024. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hey now, it's Mike Gilbert, host of the Mike and JD Show, right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Join JD by God Oliva and myself every Thursday night live on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube channel at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we stay up all night discussing all the hottest stories in professional wrestling. You can also check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting feed, or you can subscribe to the Mike and JD Show feed. Now, enjoy the show.